Okay, no worries. And Roy's on the call in Zoom with us.
Okay, this is the Sustainability Commission Standing Subcommittee on Solar and Green Building. Today is March 2nd, 2021, and it is 10:42 a.m.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. And we have Commissioners Friedman and Flanagan on the call, so we're quorum. And acceptance of the agenda. Tracy, let's go quickly through the agenda, see which items you might have updates for from Patrick, and if not, we'll just defer them to our next meeting. So GHG inventory, anything new from Patrick? Obviously, he gave us a full report at the commission meeting. So do you have anything else since the commission meeting that we had 2 weeks ago from Patrick?
There's no update. Patrick did reach out to PlaceWorks and has not received a response back yet. Okay,
fine. So we'll hear back from the next at the commission meeting then. Anything on the case studies? That's American Wind Energy Association success story case study. Anything new that you've heard from Patrick on that?
Patrick does not have an update on that either.
Okay. All right. Anything, we'll just go through what may be deferred and then we'll get the rest of the things. EV charger expansion, anything new since that? Once again, these are all reporting items from the commission meeting. So anything new since then?
Of course, no update since the commission meeting.
Okay. All right. I'll have a brief update on the home energy assessment rebate. Jim, you'll have something on fee-based parking?
No, nothing since what we submitted, but I did ask Patrick what we need to do to transmit that to the general plan group. So I think I'm waiting for Patrick's reply. So, but nothing for the meeting. Thanks.
Okay, all right, that's fine. And Tracy, last thing is anything on hydrogen fuel stations beyond Patrick's email from yesterday, which I can embed in the written report?
No update since that email.
There, hold on here. Somebody's calling me. Just a second. Hello? Hello? I'm in a meeting. Come back at noon. Okay, bye. You aren't supposed to be here till noon. All right, I can't deal with you now. Bye. Bye. All right, sorry about that. I said it at noon. Okay, fine. Sorry about that. All right, so we'll quickly go through the rest of the agenda then. Okay, AB 1236 implementation. This is the EV charger fast permit, an expedited permit ordinance that City Council approved back in January. The ordinance is now in effect because the 30 days after second reading has passed. I have mentioned to Patrick all the updated checklists and permit application that I reviewed have been posted on the website. There's still a policy memo from 2017 that was put in because there was no ordinance, but now that there's an ordinance, that needs to be deleted from the website because it's somewhat confusing. It's been replaced by the ordinance as well as the updated material. So I've mentioned to Patrick for him to liaise with building just to get that deleted because it is somewhat confusing to have a sort of policy memo up on the website.
We'll get that removed today.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Here's my reporting items. And I'll go through them fairly quickly because I've already written down most of what things that I want to say. So the Energy Commission is moving very quickly towards the adoption of the 2022 Energy Code, which will be in effect on January 1, 2023. The formal code language, still in draft form, has been posted. So the Energy Commission has posted the actual draft language of the code, which I've reviewed. Based on my reading of the code, heat pump water heaters will be required for new single-family residences in climate zone 15, where Palm Springs is located. And there also will be requirements for pre-wiring in new single-family residences for battery storage, space heaters if you're not already putting one in, combined cooktop ovens and clothes dryers. And a very big sort of item is that solar and battery storage will be required for many new commercial buildings. So there's a lot that's happening. It's not a full all electric code like many activists have requested, but there are a whole bunch of, various sort of electrification measures that will be introduced. So council will, as part of the regular code adoption process, get an ordinance in roughly November of 2022 to adopt the various building codes, including the energy code, in effective January 1, 2023. So that's sort of on the code process, but parallel to the code process, as I've been reporting at the various committee and commission meetings, there's something called REACH codes, and these are various city and county for unincorporated areas ordinances that go beyond the specific code requirements, and the Energy Commission strongly encourages them as a kind of laboratory and test case to then help develop statewide mandatory code requirements. So the next Energy Commission business meeting, the commission has to approve all REACH codes. So the next business meeting from the Energy Commission is on March 17th. There's from San Jose and Piedmont. Piedmont is kind of embedded in the middle of Oakland. It's sort of surrounded by Oakland, kind of up on the hills. The Piedmont ordinances that I reviewed, and it's a link to the in the commission agenda. So thank you for adding that. It's a good model for what can be adopted for in Palm Springs. Because it also focuses, like the one from Chula Vista that I previously mentioned, it focuses on energy efficiency measures for residential retrofits. There's some other aspects, but in particular, when you're doing a home retrofit, and this one is also based on permit value, it asks you to take a number of steps beyond what code already requires. So there are some minimum code requirements for bringing things up to code when you do a certain form of renovation, but these go beyond the code requirements. So there are a couple of thresholds. It's a bit of a menu. So it's one of the things that I like is that it gives people different options. So if you're doing something at $25,000, you have a menu and you have to do one item. If you're doing at least $100,000 renovation based on permit value, you have to do 2 items. So I'm going to be looking, that was just posted. I'm going to be looking through that and combining it with data from a cost effectiveness, residential retrofit cost effectiveness study that the REACH codes team just posted. Jim, this is our good friend Misty. That was just posted last week, and it basically, for all 16 climate zones in California, says that if you do a certain residential retrofit measure, it'll cost you upfront this much. It will save you that much over the life cycle, generally 30 years. And there's also some GHG reduction data. So I have a call scheduled with Misty at 2:30 this afternoon. There's a couple of data sets where I think just a couple of numbers may have gotten garbled. So I'm just going to clarify that. And then based on that, and a lot of this information is in the web-based tool that the REACH codes team has developed. So I'm going to start working on kind of reviewing in detail the Piedmont ordinance, look at things that I think would make the most sense for Palm Springs, and in particular the ones that have the biggest bang for the buck, where you have the strongest cost benefit or benefit cost ratio, least cost and highest energy savings over the life cycle. So that's on my to-do list in the coming weeks to try and get something like that. So Jim, or Roy, any questions on Energy Commission before I move over to the CPUC?
Yeah, I was actually dropped for a while, and I've been waiting in the waiting room, so I don't have any questions. So.
All right, fine. All right, so that's on the Energy Commission. On the CPU side, they're doing a lot as well, but the one point I wanted to comment is that CVAG, together with Western Riverside Council of Governments and San Bernardino Council of Governments, are applying to the CPUC to create a new joint regional energy network for the Inland Empire. It'll be called IREN. And it will focus on energy, public sector energy efficiency, improving energy code compliance, and workforce education and training. The estimated budget is close to $10 million annually, and it's financed through, there's no additional charge. This is part of the cost that you already pay on your utility bills. So the IREN business plan is included an information item for the Desert Community Energy February 23rd board meeting, because there's a lot of cross-pollination between DCE and the IREN. If and when the CPUC approves the business plan, it'll take about 1 year to develop an implementation plan and begin ramping up for launch. And then once CVAG and its partners begin the implementation plan phase, a timeline for launch will be fully developed. So there will be a lot of, assuming this goes through, there will be a lot of good opportunities for collaboration with CVAG and IREN. A lot of the things that I've been developing, like such as the energy code training sessions, that's something that IREN would take over. And actually, I was pleased to see that the energy code training sessions that we put on together with CVAG are actually mentioned in the business plan as an example of what the IREN could be doing. So we're not specifically mentioned as Palm Springs Sustainability Commission, but there is a mention of those activities. So that was good to see. So that's it for the CPUC. There are a whole bunch of other proceedings that I'm following on various things going on up in actually in San Francisco. Yeah.
David, could we back up to the Energy Commission?
Sure. Yeah.
I've had some questions about some of the hardware that you've talked about in your reports, the heat pump water heater and the space heaters. Can you say a little bit more about how those operate and what it would take to retrofit?
Yeah, so these things are part of the electrification move. So there's a whole bunch of state various mandates and goals about building electrification and general GHG reductions that we've discussed in connection particularly with GHG inventory. So one of the key contributors, and we've seen from the inventory that Patrick has prepared, one of the, or Placeworks is prepared and presented with Patrick, obviously strong input, is one of the strong contributors to GHG emissions is building emissions. So there's kind of two separate tracks. So let's talk about the energy code in itself. So the energy code, which will be mandatory state requirements for new construction. There's been a lot of push by activists to require all new construction for residences to be all electric. The Energy Commission did not want to go there for the 2022 code cycle, but is likely to go for 2025. What they've done in the building code draft that was just posted last week is essentially in the various climate zones say that certain zones are going to have heat pump water heater requirements for new construction and the other for space heaters. So let me just talk a little bit about the technology. The water heater is essentially, instead of, it's your standard water heater, but it's just instead of gas, it's simply, it's a tank. There's generally 55 gallons seems to be the standard model. And instead of it being heated by gas, it will be heated by electricity. So you need various plugs to be able to do it and 240 volt wiring. And of course that will be required to be put in. The advantage of the water heaters is that they retain heat for a long time, for up to 24 hours from what I understand. So for example, and they're all very electric sort of programming. So when electricity is cheap in the middle of the day, most people are on Edison time of use rates. So when electricity, you could heat your water heater in the beginning, in the early part of the day, during the day, and particularly if you have solar, you're generating a lot of solar then, and it will stay warm. So you're not actually using the electricity, in the evening when you're cooking and doing dishes and things like that. So there's a lot of time shift there. And the requirements, what we call tier 3, will have a lot of sort of, will have a lot of bells and whistles that allow sort of, thermostats to be programmed. So that will be required. Retrofits that can be done. The challenge is once again for for the wiring. So for an older house that many of us have, you may not have the panel that will allow you to do it. So it can be done. It would be, the Piedmont has it among the options for, if you're doing a major retrofit. Those seem not to be kind of break even for cost effectiveness. I have to go through the study in detail, but they seem to be, at least on a retrofit basis, probably not necessarily cost effective. So I don't think that, that could be an option if people really wanted to do full electrification or more electrification, but it's probably at best break even. There are a whole bunch of rebates from Edison, so that may bring some of the cost down. So that's some of the work that I need to do to look at things to see what rebates are available from Edison that might make those things more cost effective. So anything on the water heaters, and then I'll move to the space heater.
No, that's helpful, actually.
All right, and for a space heater, space heaters are essentially air conditioning with a valve that reverses. So instead of having, and that's likely to be what will be required for new construction in our climate zone. So instead of having, most of us have, for the older homes, and the California standard is what we call split fuel. So you have a boiler to, heat your house, and then air conditioner to cool your house. A space heater is essentially your air conditioner with a valve that turns the other way. So it blows hot air into your house in the winter and cold air in your house in the summer. And those are generally cost effective, certainly for new construction. Once again, for retrofits, you have to, do a whole bunch of, you may have to do a whole bunch of extra wiring for things like that. But that will be, so you'll basically be completely heating your house. And that California is kind of separate in the sense that we traditionally have these dual fuel, but in many parts of the country, it's the same unit that will both heat and cold, which of course, so that's, I think, what we're likely to have for new construction. And it can be an option for a retrofit. For example, you want to replace your boiler fails, you don't want to bother with a new boiler, you can decide just to get a, one unit to cover both.
Great, thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, Jim, any questions on those items?
No, I'm good.
Okay, that's fine. And Roy, I think in the materials for the last commission meeting, because I had Patrick post them, there's a couple of, I think there was, I'm not sure that was on space heaters, but there are a couple of slides from the Energy Commission on water heaters, on heat pump water heaters.
Did see those now that you mention it.
Yeah, and they're standard issue. I mean, you can get them at all the big box stores. So they're fairly easy to do that then. Okay, so all right, so we can move on from CPUC and CEC. Nothing on the sustainability scholarship, and I'm still waiting to hear from the folks who did the audit. They canceled the actually presenting the results. I sent them an email or a voicemail yesterday, and still waiting to hear back from them. So I will. I'll report back once I actually have them come and present their conclusions to see what exactly that they do and what our set of recommendations would look like. Okay, Jim, on fee-based parking, I'll just note that you're liaising with Patrick on presenting the recommendation approved by the commission to the General Plan Steering Committee. Is that correct, Jim?
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you, David.
Okay. All right, that's fine. I'll embed that in the written report. Okay, DCE, a lot going on because both the board and the Community Advisory Committee met last week, Tuesday for the board and Wednesday for the CAC. So the good news from the board is that their meeting last Tuesday, they approved a very robust solar power purchase agreement. So this will be for a large solar farm in Kern County. No, I think it's Tulare County, excuse me, in Tulare County in the Central Valley. And this is a 50 megawatt solar PV system together with a 50 megawatt 4-hour battery. So what happens is that during the day, the solar farm will charge the battery and the battery will have up to 4 hours of storage. So in the evening when the sun goes down, the battery will actually be able to send 4 hours worth of energy into the grid. So this is a very, it improves grid reliability. It locks in prices. It's a 15-year power purchase agreement and will enable DCE to satisfy both its needs for renewable energy as required by the PUC, as well as most of us in Palm Springs are on the carbon free. It provides carbon free energy into the grid, which is then essentially swapped for whatever other carbon-free energy is on the grid. So I'll provide a little bit more details in the written report, but it's estimated to save quite a lot of money over spot prices and lock DCE at favorable prices. So DCE is moving quickly on those things. Next, and Roy, you may have heard about this, Lonnie has stepped down from her slot on the Community Advisory Committee. I understand, I guess she put in her email that she's doing other things. I assume that's for the work she's doing with you on Scour. So she stepped down there. We do have a vacancy. We now have 2 vacancies. I will liaise with Patrick to see sort of what the best approach is to publicizing those vacancies, and probably write to Mayor Pro Tem Middleton and Councilmember Coors. Jeff is the chair of DCE, Palm Springs liaison and chair of DCE, and Lisa's the alternate. So I'll probably liaise with them to see how we can do this. And Roy, something that I'll specifically mention to Lisa, and maybe Patrick can do this. This would be a good sort of announcement for the next 1PS meeting to note that there are vacancies. So I'll liaise with folks and Patrick, I think, has generally been attending, or maybe Tracy, you take care of that, but generally he's been at the 1PS meetings for announcements.
He has there's a standard agenda item for him for city hall.
Okay, great. All right, so I can ask him to add that to his 1PS events, and because I'd like to particularly, we don't have anybody from the 2 council districts that aren't represented. Are Council District 1, which is Councilmember Garner, and then Council District 4, which is Mayor Holstich. So I'll let them know. I mean, there is a specific requirement, to have 1 person from each council district, but obviously we'd like all zones of the city, and particularly in zone 1, District 1, to be represented, because they haven't had anybody from up there on the CAC. Another reporting item, and I can also liaise with Patrick, is that Roy, I think you were on the commission when we had the solar discussion way back in December 2016. I think you may have just joined the commission by then. If you recall, we had a presentation from Grid Alternatives, and they talked about the solar panels that they installed in some affordable housing. Actually, I think in the area that's been in the news around Chuckwalla Road. And there are some remaining properties in Palm Springs that are eligible for installation at no cost to the homeowner under what's called the SASH program. And there's a letter, the draft letter that's been sent via DCE to the mayors of, or to staff, but to be signed by the mayors of all 3 DC cities, Palm Springs, Palm Desert, and Cathedral City. And that would be a letter to be sent to the people who are eligible, which are the deed restricted homes, to contact Grid Alternatives about potentially getting solar installed on their houses at no cost. So I'll follow up. That's a letter to be sent by Mayor Holstage, and I'll follow up with Patrick to see whether he's had any sort of, input from her on if there's anything else that we can do to assist on publicizing the fact that there's basically money that is available. And this is, once again, sort of a PUC and Energy Commission, I think it's an Energy Commission project in particular. And those funds will expire at the end of the year, this year. So the projects need to be committed. The installations can happen into next year, but the projects actually need to be committed by the end of this year, or else the funds are kind of lost. So it's a bit of a use or lose, and we'll liaise with that. So I'll follow up with Patrick on that. The CAC main focus at our meeting last week was discuss various low-cost programs. So one of the advantages of community choice aggregators that are now really throughout the state is that all of the revenue is kept locally, as opposed to going to the investor-owned utility shareholders. So the DCE is really looking at some programs that can be used to put, projects back in the community. So we're still in our first year, so there isn't a lot of revenue to, that can be used for expensive programs, but we're looking at low and no cost programs that other community choice aggregator have adopted, and that we can use here in actually all 3 cities, because they generally wouldn't be a cost. Well, Cathedral City's dropping out, but some of the programs may also be available for them. So we're all looking at some of those programs, but I particularly have been trying to get DCE to focus on energy efficiency and to publicize the programs that we already have here in Palm Springs, which is, of course, the Sustainability Scholarship and the Home Energy Audit Rebate. So they're working with their communications consultant, Burke Ricks, to create a energy efficiency page and let folks know, this is what I can do. For example, if I wanted to do some insulation or other sort of, things, these are some resources, both in terms of rebates and things like that, that would be available. So we're focusing on that, just to kind of have one place where people could look at. There's some information already that Patrick has posted on the city website, and so we'll just try and coordinate between the city website and DC website to get that information that's available. So that's it for DCE. A lot going on. Any questions, Chairman Roy, on that?
No, not for me, David. Thanks.
Okay.
On me. Thank you.
All right, so agenda items, I'll cover the things that I discussed, and then I'll send a separate email for, for Patrick, just to know that, these are the updates, and particularly for GHG.
We
Yeah.
typically finalize the agenda the Monday of the week before the meeting, so it would be next Monday, the 8th.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll send an email to you and Patrick, Tracy, just for the things that, it's just basically looking at those things. And I think they're pretty much standard items anyway, like GHG and success story, that Patrick would just include in the staff report. Okay, that's the meeting in a kind of a New York minute. Just
Anything else from anyone?
That's it for me. And since it was short and I've already done a lot of this already, I'll have the written report available by tomorrow, I think, at the latest.
Sounds good. The time is currently 11:11 a.m. The meeting of the Sustainability Commission, Solar and Green Building Subcommittee will adjourn to April 6th, 2021 at 10:30 a.m.
Okay, thank you all. See you at the commission meeting in 2 weeks.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.